George was born in Ponxsutawney, Pennsylvania. I think that's where they have the Groundhog Day, and I know I'm clobbering that. He was born in an Italian family of 11 boys and 1 girl, and he proudly served in the Army, what was then the Army Air Corps during World War II. After the war, he and his wife, Belle, moved to San Diego, and in 1946, he opened his first restaurant in Hillcrest. Back then, George is quoted as saying that pizza was so unfamiliar to people in San Diego that he had to give it away in order to get people to understand what it was. And apparently it worked. I can tell you, as a youngster growing up here, his Hillcrest Pernicano's Pizza restaurant was a regular stop for us after football games, and sometimes on Sunday afternoons if we could scrape up the money to go and have one of his wonderful pizzas. That single restaurant, though, quickly changed as George and his brothers opened a string of Pernicano's restaurants that really stretched countywide from the East County all the way up to Oceanside. Sometime later, he opened another restaurant up in Hillcrest called Casa de Baffi, which I think means mustache in Italian. And it was very well known. It was a hangout for a lot of different people. I will never forget, though, after it closed, and not too many years ago, George took me on a tour because he was thinking of what's he going to do with this old restaurant. It was all shut down, had been for many years, and he wanted to show me every part of the building. And so at one point on the tour, we went into the basement, what I call the cellar, and there was a bunch of stuff just laying around, but there was a table in the middle of the room, and there was this enormous round of cheese that had to be there since the restaurant closed. It had a coating of mold on it that was probably a foot tall. And I remember George saying, you know, Ron, if we cleaned it off, it probably wouldn't be too bad. There was no way I was going to try it or sample it, but it was, I think, indicative and typical of his humor, and he really was quite a character. He's well known not only for his restaurants, but in 1961, he was one of those prominent San Diegans who band together to convince that the then owner of the Los Angeles Chargers, maybe to be the same again, but in any event, he convinced Baron Hilton, who was the single owner at that time, to relocate the football team to San Diego. They had played one season in Los Angeles, and not only he convinced him to move here and to begin play in a high school stadium, San Diego High School Stadium at that time, and even before it was expanded in capacity. He purchased an interest in the team in 1963, and he became one of the 5 original owners, minority owners of the Chargers, and still is in possession of that ownership, which he refused to sell, no matter how good the offers were. He really enjoyed the football. He enjoyed being an owner. He attended virtually every game on the road and at home. He missed very, very few games, and if he missed a game, there was some significant reason, like a special event, maybe a wedding in the family, or perhaps in later years because he was in not as good a health. But his loyalty was always there and was always strong. In September of 1996, George Pernicano was inducted into the Chargers Hall of Fame, and it was something that was very deserved. He was a Charger enthusiast who loved the team. He loved the players. You would often see him during the games patrolling the sidelines, and you couldn't miss him with his distinguished mustache that he had. George is survived by his sons Gary and Larry, grandchildren Tony, Michelle, Tina, George, Amy, and Andres, and 13 great-grandchildren. He's going to be greatly missed by his many family members. by his army of friends, and he will be remembered not only for the Chargers, but at least among many of us for the many pleasures that he added on our behalf to San Diego County.